I want to thank you for attending this vigil for Aaron Bushnell, to hear reflections from different speakers about his ultimate sacrifice. Aaron is described as a sensitive young man who cared about homeless women and children, and he gave out of his own resources. Aaron must have had a strong ethical compass and belief system. I'm a retired educator and a mother of 3, a Palestinian who has been deeply touched for 75 years since I've been a 2-year-old. The catastrophe that hit my people and tragedies, I felt them early on. My 4 aunts and uncles became refugees out of Jaffa, Haifa, and Al-Quds, Jerusalem, in 1948. My grandma in Bethlehem and my grandparents in Nablus took in dozens of family members, as did my parents. I heard Mama cry, looking for her friends and relatives that no one could locate at the time. Refugees filled our schools, our community halls, our churches. Refugees filled our schools, our community centers, our churches, and our mosques. Hunger became prevalent. Farmers lost their lands, and fishermen could not fish in the Mediterranean Sea. So food was scarce. My father's law practice, which was in a room in our apartment, became a social center. People came asking for help. Refugees, villagers, and city folk. Sometimes people were there before I woke up in the morning, and many times people were there after we went to bed. My father was now supporting over 15 members of his family and his own parents financially and emotionally, and all the people that came to the door asking for help, whether it was legal, financial, or social. People came asking my father to look for their missing children when they had left in 48. Some of them lost children. He never turned anyone away. Then in 1967, my parents and I became refugees. We were outside the country, and Israel refused to let us return. Along with 250,000 professionals, students, and workers studying or working in the Arab countries or outside. So I was not able to go home to my grandparents, to the community, or to our own house and land. And when my grandma died, Israel refused to give me a permit to return. Stories of heartbreak and suffering never ceased. Israeli massacres began in the early of 1947 while the British were still there. I heard of atrocities all throughout my childhood and adult life. Gaza and Lebanon got the brunt of the Israeli aggression because it had more of the refugees, and they will not give up the right of return. Israel is determined to get rid of them because it did not want them returning, although it agreed to that in Resolution 194 when it signed to say, yes, they can go home. And now, of course, we see elimination of the Palestinians is what Israel would do. became aware that the U.S. was acting as a partner to the genocide through his strategic position. Yes, the U.S. is committing this genocide with Israel. Our government has given over $70 billion in the last 5 to 6 decades. We give $4 billion annually to Israel. We also give equipment, Apache helicopters with machine guns that shoot 10,000 bullets a minute or second, I'm not sure. Phosphorus, 2,000-pound bombs. We give Israel parts and technology and repairs. Also, we give them loans, free interest loans, imagine, and Congress forgives them eventually. Now, Biden and Congress are determined to double down and give Israel $14 more billion in weapons. And they've given a lot already. They've given about $500 million in the last couple of months. Also, U.S. has cut aid to United Nations Relief Organization, which helps UNRWA, which helps Palestinian refugees in schools, with food, with social structures, hospitals, and education, higher education. U.S. vetoes all these resolutions at the UN Security Council. So basically, 60 years of the U.S. protecting the atrocities Israel commits. Aaron received his order to report to the Air Force 70th Intelligence Surveillance Wing to serve with Israel. The data he collects would help provide targets for Israel to bomb. Aaron would have been complicit in the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza. He might have heard also from other airmen that Israeli U.S. service members are on the ground in Gaza committing the genocide. That we can't confirm. After 5 months of witnessing 30,000 Palestinians slaughtered, Aaron did not want to be part of this, killing innocent men, women, and children. He felt the helplessness to change the course, so Aaron immolated at the door of the Israeli consulate in D.C., sending the powerful message, end the genocide of Gaza. I would like to introduce the first speaker, John Bach, longtime peace activist, Quaker, spent 3 years in prison as a war resister. Also a Quaker chaplain at Harvard University during the Vietnam War? No. He's a Quaker chaplain at Harvard, sorry. During the Vietnam War, he became very aware of Vietnamese and Americans who immolated themselves. John Bach.
Layla, thank you very much, and thank you to all the organizers, and a special thanks to the person who turned off the bells. I am happy to be with you this evening as we gather in solemn tribute to Aaron Bushnell in remembering the genocide in Gaza and the tragic and gut-wrenching list of victims. Like all of you, I'm sure I attend many protests and demonstrations in opposition to the Israeli savagery in Gaza. My profound gratitude to the 50-some protesters arrested Thursday at South Station. But tonight is different. This is different. We're here not just to protest, but to mourn and acknowledge Aaron's sacrifice and the deaths of over 30,000 Gazans. Could we therefore please observe a moment of silence as we gather together as a community that understands the importance of being here this evening? Thank you. When I was asked to speak, I hesitated, knowing I'd have a hard time finding any suitable words for such a troubling action like self-immolation, sympathetic as I am for Aaron's passion and anguish. Plus, I thought, how hard could it be to fill up 3 to 5 minutes? Very hard, it turned out, to find words big enough. I keep returning to something Dr. King said. He said that people who have not found something to die for run the risk of never having been fully alive. I come from a generation that had a head start on dealing with self-immolation, dozens of which were occasioned by the American war in Vietnam. These were seen at the time as suicides and dismissed without much thought or introspection. In the mid-1960s, I was sufficiently woke enough to understand the witness of a Buddhist monk, Thich Quang Duc, who immolated himself when not 1 in 50 Americans could find Vietnam on a map. It was photographed, and President Kennedy said, "No news picture in history has generated so much emotion around the world as that one." I want to mention 2 others who immolated themselves to bring them back into life in our memories, the way I hope Aaron's name will live in ours. Nachi Mai, a young Buddhist nun who appeared so happy and serene in the month before her immolation, her friends thought she had become engaged. And Norman Morrison, an American Quaker, who brought his 1-year-old daughter to the Pentagon to focus attention on the children of Vietnam, handed her off and immolated himself. The Vietnamese who lived in the land of burning children, napalm, white phosphorus, carpet bombings, understood the sacrifice better than most Americans. They didn't dismiss it as suicide, which proceeds from despair and loss of hope. Trucks on the Ho Chi Minh Trail bringing supplies to the battlefields of South Vietnam carried photographs of Norman Morrison on their dashboards. And I want to add one more name, Rachel Corrie, who's on the side here, who was crushed by an Israeli bulldozer in 2003 as she tried to prevent the demolition of a Palestinian home in Rafah. And now we know the name Aaron Bushnell, who said, "I have been complicit in the violent domination of the world, and I will never get the blood off my hands." What must have been going through Rachel Corrie's mind in the split second before it was too late to move out of the way? Or in Aaron Bushnell's mind in the seconds after dousing himself with gasoline and just before the match was struck? Maybe something like finding something to die for and being judged to have fully lived in times of pain and horror and freeing themselves from the complicity. May we ponder the same question and be moved and inspired to respond according to the dictates of our own consciences, and to show up and show up and show up, making certain we do not lose sight of what keeps us truly human and living fully. And may we be nourished by the strength of our community as we continue. Aaron's last words were, "Free Palestine." May we all take up that banner for Aaron, for the Gazans, for the Israelis even, and for ourselves. Thank you. Free Palestine.
How you doing?
Hani Murad. Our next speaker is Brayton Shanley. Together with Susan Shanley, founded a Catholic lay community to live a non-violent and environmentally sound lifestyle he called Agape in Central Mass. They have been active in anti-war and anti-death penalty protests for over 40 years.
Brayton, all right. Woo-hoo. All right, Brayton.
Well, greetings, everyone. This is a wonderful idea to be in solemn semicircle, to remember the dead and to remember Aaron and the others who have given us the ultimate sacrifice. It's a difficult time. As John said, it's difficult to find words for the anguish of this kind of massive war crime per day. For how many months now? Impossible. It's impossible. And it's a test of faith. It's a test of faith in humanity that we can't stop this, that we started it to begin with, and we can't stop it. And we have 144,000 buildings have been destroyed. If that's genocide, that's a culture. That's the mosques, it's the libraries, it's the hospitals, it's the schools. It's genocide, and it's daily. It's daily. And trapped. People are trapped. They can't run because they get killed. They can't hide in their own houses because they get killed. They can't go to shelters because they get killed. And when they get wounded and in a hospital, they end up in a hospital with no anesthesia for the operations. So this is a terrible, terrible moment. I think it's the most graphically horrible moment I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not even there. Imagine being there. I think of a woman. Her name is Rachel Bennis, and she's an activist, American Jew activist for Palestine. And Phyllis Bennis. She gave a talk on Palestine. It was moving. It was very, very moving. And she's given her whole life to it, so it showed in the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, I was getting anxious about what are we going to do about this? How are we going to stop this? And she said, we have to keep after Biden. Keep after Biden. I thought, well, 5 senators out of 100 are for ceasefire. 5 out of 100. Joe Biden is not going to break with the loyalty to Israel in an election year. He's not going to do that. Israel has the right to defend itself, right? So, and who is Joe Biden? Joe Biden is a cradle Catholic. He's a cradle Catholic. Did you know that Joe Biden went to Mass before he got inaugurated president of the United States? Went to Mass. And when you go into Mass, you go in the front door of the church, and you stick your finger in holy water, and you make the sign of the cross. And he's the only sitting president that has ever made the sign of the cross for the public. I don't think Kennedy did that. He made the sign of the cross when the burial at Arlington Cemetery. And I wanted to ask Joe, what does this mean, Joe? What does the sign of the cross mean? It's a sign of the cross of Jesus. It's a sign of suffering love. It's a sign of loving your executioners. It's a sign of preferring to die than kill. That's what it's a sign of. Is it just a habit for you, Joe? Is it just a habit that you do this? Right? Or are you making the sign of the cross and then turning around the cross and sticking it into the Palestinians and inflicting the suffering on the Palestinians, refusing to suffer yourself and inflicting this suffering on others. So I would like to pray, offer a prayer for Benjamin Netanyahu and for Joe Biden, that the God of love and the God of mercy come down and enter their hearts and to melt their warlike, paranoid, traumatized hearts to stop this killing, to stop the killing. Please, please, I'd like to pray for Aaron Bushnell and the rest. Our generation, of course, as John was saying, is familiar with this, the Buddhist monks first. Roger Laporte, Catholic worker, also immolated himself in New York during the Vietnam War. Gregory Levy at the Amherst Common in 1991, the Gulf War. And now Aaron. I pray to them to say that we will not forget their ultimate sacrifice. We pray to them to say to each other that we will resist war. We will refuse to support war. We will refuse to obey orders. We will refuse to pay for war and stop this madness that humanity is stuck in and obedient to. Aaron, we will not forget you, and we will double down with our courage to say no to war. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a poem about his Buddhist monks who immolated themselves. And it was, "Your tears are my tears. Your grief and sorrow is my grief and sorrow. I kneel in your ashes, and a lotus flower blooms." Amen.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hani Murad. He holds a doctorate in clinical psychology. His experience as a clinician and academic expands from the United States to the Middle East. He has been working in the mental health field for about 3 decades in Boston. He has provided support for children and their families and performed evaluations. He spent 15 years working in Gaza as a psychologist. He also was appointed as the regional ombudsman for the Middle East and North Africa for 2 years, providing prevention, training, emergency response, and dispute resolution in multiple settings. Hani Murad.
Thank you. All of us gathered here this evening to pay tribute and to remember and honor Aaron Bushnell, a courageous advocate for the freedom of the oppressed, an advocate for peace, for human rights, and for justice. I'm quoting him saying, "I will no longer be complicit in genocide." Aaron declared that as he was about to perform a profound act of protest and solidarity with the Palestinian people. I believe, like so many of you, that through his courageous action, he was dedicated to making the world a better place. A world where the cries of the oppressed were heard, where the ravages of war against the Palestinians and other indigenous people were challenged, and where the bonds of humanity freed all of us. Through his action, Aaron fiercely spoke out against the horrors of war, and he teaches us that his passion for peace was unwavering. He stood firm in his conviction that every life mattered, that every voice deserved to be heard, and that every soul deserved dignity and respect. For some, they may see his action as violent, but for me, as well as for many of you, his action shows a heart filled with empathy and a mind fueled by justice, advocating for a world where conflicts were resolved by granting justice and freedom to the oppressed, the dispossessed, and the dehumanized, and to the victims of unfair, unjust, immoral policies of cruel governments and cynical fascist groups. His action was an act of resistance to protest a society whose cruelty has become intolerable, a beacon of hope in a world too often overshadowed by darkness. He has touched the lives of millions of people around the world by his action. Though Aaron's journey may have ended prematurely, his legacy will live on in the hearts and minds of millions around the globe who feel that they have been silenced, marginalized, and disenfranchised. We're grieving Aaron in his uniform screaming, "Free Palestine, free Palestine." His level of outrage and horror is justified. It is shameful that his commander-in-chief did not mention Aaron's name last Thursday evening. Our grief is over the lost lives of such a righteous, committed young man, the loss of lives of tens of thousands, the starvation of millions in Gaza and around the world. Let us remember him with gratitude, with love and compassion, not for the way he left us, but for his passion for justice. His bold action showed unwavering belief to justice and peace. Let us build a worthy world guided by his sacrifice, his spirit, and his dreams. A world where love triumphs over hate, where compassion replaces cruelty, and where peace extinguishes war. Let our fury and anger propel us to action. Let our tears and sorrow wash our despair with hope, and let light overcome darkness. Your light will never dim, for it will shine through our hearts. Bless you.
Our next speaker is Jess Feldman. Jess Feldman is a resident of Brookline. They are a member of Jewish Voice for Peace.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to the organizers of this vigil. I'm a union activist, so I have more experience at union rallies than vigils, so I hope at the end you'll join me in a chant. I'm standing here with you in mourning for the countless lives destroyed by the colonial conquest of Palestine, which has been going on for more than 100 years. And tonight we mourn the more than 30,000 lives taken by Israel since October. And as we mourn, as Hani reminded us, we also stand in solidarity with the struggle for liberation for Palestinians. I'm an American Jew. I grew up in a community where Zionism was the air we breathed. I was told that Israel was a beacon of democracy and Jewish values. I visited Israel in 2012 on Birthright, and it became immediately clear to me that I had been lied to. I still had a lot more to learn about Israel's oppression of Palestinians, but even then, it was clear to me that Israel is an apartheid, ethno-nationalist state. And today I know that I can be proudly Jewish and take a stand against a hyper-militarized right-wing state like Israel. For too long, Zionists have peddled the lie that Jewish people need Israel to be safe. The lie that the Nakba, the ongoing murder and dispossession of Palestinians, is necessary for Jewish people to be safe. But we are here today to say that a world where millions of Palestinians are forced from their homes is a world where no one is safe. A world where tens of thousands of Palestinians are murdered and tens of thousands more permanently debilitated by bullets and bombs is a world where no one is safe. A world where Palestinians are deliberately starved, where their self-determination is denied, is a world where no one is safe. This world of brutal violence is, to invoke Aaron Bushnell's words, what our ruling class has decided will be normal. A world where we are afraid of one another, where safety is measured in bullets, bombs, and border walls. This world is devastating, and waking up in it every day breaks my heart. And this is especially true on what is likely the eve of Israel's genocidal invasion of Rafah. This latest intensification of an already brutal siege is the logical conclusion of Zionism. In taking a stand against Zionism, we are also working to build a different, more just world. This new world is built on solidarity. It's built on solidarity with all people committed to dreaming of and fighting for a more just future. Being here tonight and morning in solidarity with you all is part of a plan to win that fight. And so too is organizing to get AIPAC's dirty, racist money out of the pockets of our political leaders. So too is divesting our communities, our universities, our pension funds from apartheid and genocide with Israel bonds. And as we mourn and organize, those of us still among the living will patiently and insistently build a new world where life is precious, from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Thank you. We needed that. Our next speaker is Joe Kebartas, Vietnam vet, member of Smedley Butler's Brigade of Boston, also a member of Pax Christi and Mass Peace Action, has been out protesting every U.S. war since Vietnam.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the organizers for this event. And it's very important that we do the mourning of Aaron Bushnell's death and the 30, 35, 40. You can't come up with the number of the Palestinians killed because the war that Israel is still bombing and still destroying as we speak today. I want to thank you for being out here. I am very, very thrilled to see so many young people out here, which I've been a veteran for peace for 40 years. I've been out in the street for the past 10 years against the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and very seldom we've seen a young person join us at the Vigil. So thank you very much for the young people to come here and join this horrible war crime that's going on. I wound up winning a lottery when I finished the university. People said to me, "Wow, what did you do with the money? Where did you go?" I said, "Unfortunately, it was the draft lottery." I wound up going to Vietnam. I wound up going there, and I found out why General Sherman said war is hell. And it's just terrible, terrible. And to think about what's going on now after 50 years of war, we have to change it. And I dedicated my life after I left Vietnam for peace. I dedicated it. I've been out in the street for many, many years, by myself, giving out flyers. And, it's sad. When I get back from Vietnam, it was terrible to think. I live in South Boston. 25 of my classmates, my teammates, and my neighbors died in Vietnam. And it's really sad to think that they didn't have a chance to live their lives. And I think of the people in Gaza today, it's terrible to think what's going on there. And it's great to see a lot of people out now. I hope this peace movement continues with a lot of people out for peace, because most people don't realize how much money is being spent on the military. I heard the Pope, he's out for a ceasefire. We have to have, I'm a Catholic, and I was very pleased that he's coming out with a ceasefire, and I think Joe Biden should obey the Pope. That's for sure. Nothing else. And March 5th, there was it's called the disarmament day. And the Pope came out and he said, we have to use less resources for weapons. As the way the world is going, a lot of resources are going to weapons, and we have to stop that. We have a moral obligation to disarm and start working and trusting and working for peace. So we have to work for that. And I think back as a peacenik myself, I learned out in the street, you'll learn an awful lot about being a peacenik. The first thing you have to do is you have to be peaceful within yourself. You have to learn to be peaceful. Second, you have to be peaceful with people all around you. Peaceful interactions. It's like that pebble going in the pond. It goes, the ripple starts, and then if enough people do that, we'll have a tsunami. And the third is to join a peace group, so you can get this message out to the society. And of course, the Veterans for Peace, you don't have to be a veteran to join. We have MAPA, we have Jewish Voices for Peace. So there's plenty of peace groups you have to join to be able to get a society and bring peace to the world. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Stephen Mandil. Stephen Mandil is a father, a husband, and a disabled veteran of the Iraq War. He is dedicated to service to his fellow veterans and is a fighter for justice and equity for communities that experience discrimination and exclusion across economic, political, social, and cultural dimensions.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to the organizers. I am here speaking to you tonight because of the ultimate and heroic sacrifice Aaron Bushnell made. Aaron's death inspired me to live, with my whole being committed to the cause of justice for oppressed people. It breaks my heart that he is no longer here with us. I admire his courage and integrity to take such an extreme action to deliver his message. I also do not want anyone else to have to do what he did. I myself was complicit in an unjust war. When I was deployed to Iraq in 2004, like many of my brothers and sisters who fought in that war, I struggled with the feeling of pride from serving my country, followed by feelings of shame and anger for my complicit role I had in the killing of innocent people and the destruction of a nation because of our governments. War is a racket and only benefits the military-industrial complex and the corrupt politicians that accept their profits as payment and sign policies to continue the growth and the ability to kill more and more people. I'm filled with anger and shame that my tax dollars are being used to destroy Palestine. On this 154th day since the attack in Israel, I'm demanding leaders of my country that millions of my brothers and sisters have sacrificed so much for to call for an immediate ceasefire. The killing of innocent people, the torture of innocent people taken hostage in Israel on October 7th are tragic and disgusting. The killing of and continued killing of innocent people of Palestine, the leveling of homes, schools, hospitals in Palestine that followed that day are both tragic and disgusting. I have love and respect for the people of Israel and those they mourn. I have love and respect for the people of Palestine and those they mourn. The killing of innocent people needs to stop. We, the United States of America, should be leading efforts to peace. It pains me to imagine if this were happening in my town, where people were taken hostage or killed, or my neighborhood being bombed because of our government. Aaron wanted the death to stop, the war to stop. Because of Aaron and his courage, I will no longer stay comfortably quiet about not wanting to be complicit in genocide. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you everyone here for taking a stand.
I have the pleasure of introducing... Come on, noise. I have the pleasure... All right. You can honk later. I have the pleasure of introducing somebody who is from my hometown, where I was born, Nablus, in the West Bank. Dr. Karameh Hawash is a Palestinian doctor from Nablus and is with Doctors Against Genocide.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون صدق الله العظيم. This is a verse from Quran. It says, do not think those who were killed to honor God are dead. They are alive by the side of God. Today, we mourn my people. We mourn my people in Palestine. We also mourn Aaron Bushnell, a man like no other. A man who chose to write his life story from start to end. I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I am about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizer, it's not extreme at all. Allah yarhamah. May God bless his soul. Aaron took charge of his life. He wrote a story about standing up for justice and standing up for the victims of the Zionist occupation. Aaron made the impossible choice. He made the impossible choice of ending his life in flames. Why did he do that? Maybe he thought the stone-hearted American government will see the flames and stop its complicity in killing my people in Palestine. Maybe they would question the complicit unconditional support for this genocide. Aaron said, if a time comes when Palestinians regain control of their land, I would love for my ashes to be scattered in a free Palestine. It is on us to honor him and fulfill his wish. It is on us to honor our martyrs in Gaza. It's on us to never stop until the children in Gaza do not tell the world that they prefer to die. Death for children in Gaza seems kinder than the life under bombardment by American 2,000 kilograms bombs that they're experiencing. Death seems gentler than having to see their parents shredded into pieces. Death seems softer than seeing their siblings' bodies speckled all around them. Death is certainly less violent than losing 1, 2, or 3 of their limbs, an eye, or half a brain. My friends, can we all commit to activism day and night to create a world for children in Gaza so they wish for life and not wish for death?
Yes.
Can we pledge to not be distracted